is money. I got hours in the bank, and if I take it out in cash, that's some hours in the bank. Protect my mental like I'm in a prison shower with a shank. I keep my mind sharp, guarded in a dark place, despite the bar.
So, season 1, episode 2, Can't Stop, Won't Stop. I'm joined by another special guest. Can you introduce yourself?
Jamal Renaldo. I'm here in the building.
And obviously, like, what do you do? What's your career path?
What do I do? I'm an actor. Acting. Yeah. Which is interesting career to be honest.
So obviously, I've known you for what?
Time.
Yeah, I've known you for a while. So I've seen your journey in it, and obviously, like, this podcast, again, I want it to show people that Too Rare to Die represents a lot, but it represents like people like yourself that have kind of dedicated their life to a certain purpose or a certain path. So we're just gonna go through like where you started and your journey, the highs and the lows of it. So I wanted to ask you firstly, like, where your passion for acting came from, and when did you say, like, all right, this is the career path I want to go on?
Do you know what? It's so mad. It's such an interesting question, because I actually think about this a lot myself, to be honest, and like, where did it start from? And this may even seem a bit mad, right? But from...
He was born.
Man said, it's just the way I am. It's just the way I am.
Come out the womb, like, yeah.
Ta-da! Come out the womb, jazz hands, boy. That's the one. But actually, I did come out hands first. No. Yeah. It's a bit of a... my mum always cussed me for it. It's like, you had to be difficult, innit? Cesarean and that. But it's weird. It's like kind of like self-analysis, actually. Because like, I was always good. Like, it's something that like I just always knew I was naturally good at from a young age. But I feel like for me, it was probably... I probably used it for like, I think I know that I used it for like some kind of like form of escapism for me personally, because growing up in my house, it was weird. It's like my parents, like I can never really remember a time when my parents were like never not talking. Okay. So the house environment was always pretty toxic, to be honest. And like going out into like daily life, going to school, whatever, like it was all, keeping up appearances sort of thing. But like, it was pretty toxic. And I feel like for me, that was just a way of escapism. So I feel like, I remember from when I was about 5, I could like reenact like the whole of The Lion King with my fucking Simba. Do you know what I mean? Really? Toy and that. Yeah. So like, I always had a knack for like, I guess, impersonating things.
It was your way of just escaping the environment at that young age, but you didn't know it then, obviously. But
no, and that's the thing, and that's what I say, just with kind of like self-reflection. It's like, why did I go down this route, or why was I just always good at it, or did I kind of use it as something like that? I think that's one thing. I think also because my dad was always big on reading, so from a young age I did always read a lot. So I think that kind of maybe just stimulated that part of my brain, that imagination part of my brain. I think like in that sense. So then I imagine like if you're a kid that's already kind of reenacting like Lion King and you're reading a lot, when it came to school, then like how did that kind of transfer itself? Like, or was there like acting classes that you started going to outside of school? Was there a certain age where you actually like, whether it was you or your parents, but kind of like took steps to becoming an actor outside of just reenacting things and whatnot as like a hobby? Or definitely, like I think when I was young, from like about 8, 9, like my parents always put me like in these Saturday schools. So I was always doing like, I think the first one I did was this thing called like Theatre Train, which was at like Phoenix High School in Bush.
Yeah.
So every Saturday, I'd be there for like 3 hours. You do hour singing, hour dance, hour acting.
Really?
Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was. Do you know what? It's not even that it was intense because it was still though like when you're younger, it's fun.
Yeah.
Because it's just do you know what I mean? It's just fun, but like it's different because when all your friends are like trying to like do you know what I mean? Knocking on your door like, do you want to come round play Nintendo or whatever or blah, and you're like, oh nah, I've got to go to this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I got to go to this drama school weekend school sort of thing. So I was always doing it from when I was younger. And then I think it was like year 6. So you know you had that holiday from year 6 because we had our SATs.
Yeah.
And we broke up a little bit early because after our SATs was done, that do you know what I mean? That was it, and we had our holidays for I think it was 6 weeks. I think if I remember correctly. Yeah. And I remember one my teacher then he recommended to my parents I do this course. It was it was called London Talent, and it was for 4 weeks. So literally for 4 weeks before, out of the holiday before you went to secondary school, I was doing that 5 times a week, 9 to 5, and we devised a play and devised some short films, and that was proper work. Obviously I do.
That's 11 years old?
Yeah. So it was the age range was from 11 to 16, or 10 to 16. So that was a lot of work. Even looking back on it now, that was a proper
So your path was kind of it begun then, I guess. To be fair, you could have got to high school and dropped it out and started doing whatever else that might have caught your interest. But I guess you had a passion for it at this time. You weren't going to those classes and kind of dreading it, or I'd rather be somewhere else. Or
do you know what? In primary school, no. When I got to secondary school, yes, definitely. Yeah. Because obviously I've been doing this from when I was I guess 8, you're doing this. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then you get to secondary school and it's I want to chill with my friends. I want to do football. I can't do football at, go training at whatever time on a Saturday and also do 3-4 hours of, drama and whatever on the weekend. And it's just been, it's just everything that comes with being a teenager, because you want to do things your friends are doing. You want to try other things, so it's just one of those things. And it's really through secondary school, I didn't do that much acting. I think I did
You say that, but you was the lead in a lot of plays that we done at school.
Nah, that was only, do you know what? Not as many as when I was in primary school. In secondary school, I only did The King and I. And that was what? I think I was in 6th form. Yeah.
Is that the only one you did?
That's the only one I did in school, in secondary. Yeah, that's the only one I did.
There was at least 2 or 3 that you did.
Nah, because that's the thing. I was always doing theatre, and to an extent, to that point, it kind of became kind of monotonous, and it became a thing where I was doing it just because I was doing it. I wasn't really enjoying it as much at that time. So I kind of didn't really do anything in terms of school.
Was there anything that kind of set you back on the path? Because I remember, obviously you can talk about it if you want, but the kind of 6th form A-level period, and you ended up leaving halfway through to go to another college. Mm-hmm. And how that came about, I would say was quite unfair and unjust on you, considering you'd been a lead role in this play, and a lot of teachers really liked you, and you're a popular person. And without even going into too much detail, there was other people that were in the same predicament as you that were allowed to stay. So was that the turning point where you was all right, I'm gonna get back on the acting thing, or did it just come about? Or?
Do you know what? It wasn't. I wouldn't even say that was the turning point. It was on the way to the turning point, if you know what I mean. It was almost like a precursor to the catalyst in a way, because then when I did get kicked out and I went to college in South, it was only when I was when I was there and I was kind of thinking about, what am I gonna do for uni? And I was applying for unis and applying for acting courses at unis. And then it's almost, I don't know what it is, it was a light bulb moment, almost an epiphany sort of thing. And I was well, if I've always done acting, why am I going to go to uni? Surely I should try and go to drama school. Yeah. And those times I was completely ignorant of drama school. and the only one I knew was RADA. Yeah. So that's the only one I applied for. I applied for 2 courses, and luckily I got in on one, and that was it.
I was going to touch on that actually, but before that, I wanted to ask, like, do you remember your first paid acting role, or when that came about, and how that was for you, like, as an experience of being someone that, you know, that's the first time you're on a set, you're dealing with the things that come with sets, so you're dealing with the director and
all those new experiences. Yeah.
Do you remember, like, the first time?
It depends. Okay, so my first, like, let's say, I mean, it was an extras role, really. It was on that Lee Nelson's Well Good show. That was like my first. That, and that was when I was still in Twyford. So that's when I was still in school.
So that was on TV. That was a big show, Lee Nelson. I remember that.
Yeah, I think it used to be on BBC Three, innit? It used to be on BBC Three. But like that was just an extra. That was just like an extra role. So that was just something I applied for and like starting out like as an extra role. Yeah. But it was technically my first paid gig, and it was jokes because like you know I went there, you know, and the thing is extra work. It does, you know, a lot of industry professionals be like, I'm never doing extra work, but it's pretty chill, man. Like you get paid a decent amount, you just chill on set, you network. And I remember sort of as we were going through the sketches, and I remember he's kind of really liked me, and he was like, "Yeah, you're good." Like, and I was like, "I'm not really doing much. I'm just here, just chilling." That was, you know, my first paid gig, but my first actual acting role, I guess, was probably the Rap Move advert, like as like an actual like artist, let's say. That was my first proper gig.
That kind of set you up for like more gigs as well, if I remember correctly, like adverts and being cast in those kind of things.
Yeah, because it's weird. I mean, you can never kind of predict the trajectory, but I think with that commercial, I started to just book. I was just booking. Yeah, well, you know, I was like, booked McDonald's after that, booked BT Sport after that, and it was just kind of like a knock-on. It felt like a knock-on effect anyway.
At that point, do you have like a set path in your head, or is it kind of like, I know I want to be an actor, I know I want to be in like big productions and you know, like make it. So like, is there a path in your head where it's like, all right, I'm going to take these roles and move up, or it's like, it's paid, like, and this will be good for my resume and we'll see how it goes and I'll do as many of these as I can, like, if I get them.
I mean, I think at that...
Did you turn anything down, or is it just like, whatever comes, I'm going to get it?
Do you know what? It's a bit of it's kind of like a catch-22, because on one hand, you're like, in your head, you have a vision of the kind of actor you want to be, yeah? So it's like, I want to be this kind of actor or this kind of artist, right? And that's good to have that vision, and it's good to have in your mind, I want to be this kind of person and be viewed as this particular type of actor. However, actors don't work, you know, actors don't work a lot. Like this, like I think it's about 96% of actors are unemployed, don't get work.
96%.
Yeah, I think it's about 96%. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's around that number, and I think maybe even higher. But if you're working in an industry that 96% of the people don't work, you get offered the work, you're gonna take the work. Like, especially if it's paid, like you're gonna take the work, or you should take the work. You know, obviously there are things you don't necessarily want to do, and you're like, I'm not doing that, or I would never do that, like that kind of work. Yeah. But you know, one, I think it's good to get the experience, because it's good to say I've done something, you know, or I've done this. Like if you're doing like a theatre and education tour, which I have done, and you're traveling the whole fucking country, and you're going from, you know, and you got to drive from fucking Sunderland to Salford in like a couple of hours to get this show on, and you're doing all the set and you're doing all lighting yourself also, like it's a good experience to have, because then you've got a better knowledge of like, I know actually how to do these things, I know how these things work, like lighting, etc. But the
people that cast you, I guess, look at these things as well and say, okay, well, he's got the experience of doing a tour, getting up at stupid times, working, you know, every day, doing 2 shows or whatever the case may be. So, you know, yeah, we'll take him on.
And that's it. Like, they think, yeah, we'll take him on, but they also think, well, he's still working. Like, because at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but if you're looking at someone who hasn't worked for 2-3 years, because they've said, they've turned this down, they've turned that down, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do this. But if you look at someone and be like, oh, this person works a lot, even if it is, you know, theatre and education or whatever, or blah, like, it's like, oh, this person's still done X amount of jobs this year, you know, so they work. And so clearly they must have something that, you know, that they must have something that makes people want to employ them. Do you know what I mean? So
like the thing that like with the acting industry, what's kind of always like baffled me is just like watching you and your journey as like a teenager, a young adult. It's like you're in a career where essentially like you're only getting income when you get a job. So it's like freelance basically.
It is.
But it's such an oversaturated market from what it seems. So there's like a lot of times where, and we've all been there, every one of like our friends or whatever has been there, where it's like you want to do things, but you have to watch your finances. But like a lot of us at that time maybe didn't know what we wanted to do, or we could just get full-time jobs. But you're an actor. Like if you get a full-time job, it's now going to hinder the opportunities of the career that you actually want to do. Like how was that for you in those times? And where did you get the kind of dedication to like still stick with it instead of just saying, you know what, I'm just going to get a full-time job, or maybe like a job that involves like the experience I've learned, like a drama teacher
or something like that.
What's kept you on that straight and narrow, and how was it for you going through that period?
The thing is, it's kind of mad because it's like because I do know people that like who do still have like full-time jobs and do acting, but then again, some of them you look at their CV and you're like, you know, you can see like this takes precedence, but they still got, you know, they still got money, still got finances, etc. But it's like, for me, what I've realized anyway as I've got older is like, you know, the money will come. That's what it is. Like the money will come, and I think that a lot of people, rightly so, do get stressed about, you know, that's why a lot of people drop out, because they're like, am I going to make any money out of this long term? It's not working. I just want to kind of live my life. Like I want a salary where I can be able to do things. I can go on holiday twice a year. I can do whatever I want. You know, I think for me, because this is the thing, back in the day when we used to, do you know what I mean? We'd be at studio, whatever, and we used to talk about it, and we always used to be like, me, bruv, how come you always have so many, you've gone to like, so always have these random jobs, like going from job to job sort of thing. Yeah. And for me, it's just because I didn't have anywhere where it was like, that was, I think, compatible with what I needed to do. And even the things that were, I just found them like soul destroying. Like when we used to work at Listen, like Listen was all right for a time, but I remember there was a point at Listen, and I think this literally just completely like made me spiral in terms of my mental health and like depression. There was literally just a time at Listen where like, I don't think I've even told you this, where like, I can't remember what, it was just one day, it's just like my mind just literally hit the floor, and like I was just there at work and I just started crying. I didn't even know why I was crying.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't even know. Like I was literally just there, like tears come. I wasn't like, but like just tears coming out. I didn't know. Like, and I think it was that disconnect because there's no manual telling you this is how acting works. Yeah. Like you can do all the things they say you're supposed to do, get headshots, get a show reel, you know, network with casting directors, blah, 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 blah. But there's no manual and there's no guarantee that you're going to be where you want to be. And I feel like, especially hitting the ground running, I think that Right Move job was maybe the second audition I had professionally, and I got it. And then, as we said, like things rolled on from there. Yeah. It was almost like a kind of, almost a set up for this false sense of expectation. Like you're just gonna,
you've hit the ground running, you're getting job after job, and you feel like it's going to continue.
It's exactly that. And then when it doesn't, you're like, okay, shit. And then when you're working in a job like Listen, where it's like, you, as we know, like with that kind of line of work, like the call center job, like the way, you know the techniques of how to try and get people to coerce them into giving money, etc. But like, it's just not a.
It was kind of like a factory, because they looked for people that wanted part-time work, and there's a lot of companies that will do that, and you'll go there and you're working with, models, actors, musicians. Mm-hmm. See, Octavian worked with us.
Yeah.
We blew up, and
the people like Blizzard, like from Manchester, innit? Like back in the day, like
loads of people that clearly they had other passions, but they just needed the money, and companies like that see that and then exploit them, and it's just mundane work. They know no one wants to be there, but they know that we'll do the job and we'll take shifts
and we'll do it well as well, because
they don't really care about how we're feeling about it, or there's not a lot of leniency to, there was flexibility, but
definitely there was definitely flexibility.
In terms of the environment, it was just like very factory like. But yeah, I didn't know that. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, like, and I think that's when I left. No, because I think we were on like hiatus for some reason because I was doing the legacy calls, and then I think not long after that I left. But it's weird because as I've got older, it's kind of like you worry less about the money, and I think also part of it comes from definitely from budgeting, like, and from understanding that you may get this $5,000 for this job, but this $5,000 could be your next paycheck for the next 4 months. So as you get older, you understand like this money ain't gonna be around forever. Again, right move thing. You get the money from that, and you're like, yeah, we're going Norwich, and I'm gonna get these exclusive Timberlands from the Timberland shop for $3 and all this mad stuff. Yeah, and then you're like, but then you look back on that and you think, why did I do that? But it's because you don't know any better. Like, you do that, but then you get another job, you get McDonald's, you get whatever. And you think it's just an endless stream, but it's not.
It's crazy to even hear, like, because most people that work 9 to 5, like, you're getting like a regular, a monthly, allowance, a salary that exactly how much it is. So people that have 9 to 5s, to hear like you might get $5,000 for like a day's work, they'll be thinking, what?
Yeah.
But then like when you actually think about it, you don't know when your next job's coming in. That $5,000 could be like 9 months before your next job.
Literally.
And when you divide $5,000 by that amount, you know what I mean?
Not much.
You're
It's not
looking
much.
at a lot less.
Yeah, it's not much at all. Really, when you think about it, it's not much at all. So it's like, I think definitely come with age, you understand that a bit better, and you're like, okay, I've got this to play with, let me put half away, or let me put whatever away. Do you know what I mean? And then also it's about reinvesting. So it's like, okay, let me put half away, but do you know what? I ain't updating my show reel in a couple of years or a year. Let me update my show reel, put some money towards that. Let me get some new headshots, because that will do you good in the long run. Do you know what I mean as well?
Smart, it makes sense. So talk to me about RADA then, because obviously I'm not the most versed in the acting world, but even I know about RADA, and I know like there's a lot of like massive actors that have gone to RADA and whatnot. Like, how did you get into RADA, and what was that experience like for you?
Well, RADA was that was a whole myth. Because, you know what I mean? Like, as you said, like, if anyone's ever heard of a drama school, like, there are like 3 drama schools you've probably ever heard of, and it's probably RADA, Juilliard, or Juilliard ain't even a drama school by itself. Like, it's it's everything else too. But you got RADA, you got Juilliard, and maybe like maybe I guess Lambda, somewhere like that. But like, yeah, that was from that time when I was doing college or sixth form in South London, when I was at my dad's, and I just thought, I don't actually want to go to uni. I was doing all the UCAS shit, and I was just like, UCAS, blah, 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 blah. And then it's just like one day I was just like, but I don't actually want to go to uni to study acting. It doesn't really make sense. Like, I probably want to go to a drama school. And I didn't know about all the other drama schools like Central and Guildhall that you can apply through UCAS. And the only one I knew was RADA. So I got the forms for the audition for the 3-year and the 1-year foundation. I filled them out, got the audition. I went to...
How many people applied for these courses at any point?
A lot. There's a lot. It's definitely in the thousands. And there are, I think on my course there was 29 places. On the BA there's 30. So, but it's definitely in the thousands.
30 places.
It's definitely in the thousands.
I imagine each big drama school has the same kind of allocations.
Yeah, so it's more or less the same as like your year group in a school. So it's your year, your class in like a school.
Like a Royal Rumble to get into them. That's crazy amount of people all trying to fit into 30 places.
Yeah, and somewhere there as well. Yeah, as you said, somewhere like a school where you got X amount of people who went there. Anthony Hopkins, Sean Bean, Adrian Lester. Like, you got all these people that went there. Steve McFadden, who's like Phil Mitchell from EastEnders, who did the exact same course I did, but back then I think it was 2-year. So you got all them kind of people who went there. So it's like, you know. So then again, when you get in there, you literally in your head, you're already a star in it, like in your mind, because you're like, oh my gosh, because everyone else, you know, who goes, you know, who wants to get into acting, that's the first place they want to go. And everyone else is sort of like, oh my God, like you went to RADA, and they almost put you on this pedestal sort of thing just from the name. It's like that name holds so much clout. It's crazy.
How old was you when you got into that course?
I was fresh out of drama school. I was about, I think I was 18.
18.
Yeah, because that was
going into RADA. That was the foundation course, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you get into RADA, like it's like a school basically, no?
Yeah.
So what kind of like classes are you doing there? Like for people that don't know nothing about RADA, or even like there's people might be watching this that are actors that want to know what it's like. Like what's it like?
Okay, to be honest, it's probably like most other drama schools, but like obviously again, I did all the Saturday schools and stuff, but not knowing exactly, it's different. There's a huge difference obviously from doing school plays and then going to like actual professional kind of training. And then the classes you do are so like you don't really see how much work there is until you go to like a drama school and you're like, shit, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Like that's why a lot of people sort of like at the drop of a hat when like, oh, I want to become an actor, but I'm like, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and that's just like the text and the character stuff. Like that's not even to do with like the amounts of rejection. Like the kind of classes you do. I mean, one of my favorite classes is just animal studies, just because I think it's just fucking jokes.
Animal studies.
Animal studies is just fucking jokes. Like
what goes on in animal studies?
I mean, more or less exactly how it sounds. Like you're in the class for like an hour and a bit, and you're an animal. Like
that's not what I thought. Exactly how it sounds. Like I'm studying animals. Like
okay.
Obviously, I knew it wouldn't be that, but you're an animal.
Yeah, so you do study animals. Yeah, you study animals. You study their movement. You study how they walk. How they move, etc. They're different. They're kind of different tendencies. But the reason for it is because it may or may not. But sometimes it might help you in performance with a certain character. If you're not really connecting with a certain character, you might just be like, do you know what? I don't know, what kind of animal is this? Would this person be? Okay. Like, okay. I feel like they move. How do they move? They move, kind of slow, but then you feel like they could strike at any moment. Or maybe they're like a snake. So like, if I'm moving like a snake, I don't need to necessarily get on the floor and wriggle like a snake, but like I can take like that movement or whatever, and then I can,
It's mental as well. It's like it's tapping into that mental side where you're able to apply that into human form.
Definitely.
That will then obviously like follow on through if you need to play a certain kind of character. It makes sense.
Exactly, but again, it doesn't work for everyone. Some people, when you're sort of like looking at your like Laban, who's a practitioner, and it's like it's a lot to do with like your different types of movement. So your different types of like flow, basically. Yeah. So so like your flow, like your someone could move a certain way and maybe they're quite jittery, and you would say that that's like a kind of like a flick movement, or someone who's like in how they walk, they're very direct, like they walk very straight and they walk boom, 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 I'm going here, I'm going to the train station. And you say that's like maybe like quite a bound movement. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So there's all those kind of lessons, and then you do like other acting classes, which would be like, say, Stanislavski, someone who brought in like the method, which is he's like a that kind of practitioner who had a style called the method, which is a big thing in Hollywood. To be honest, I feel like they use it to sell films, but it's a big thing in Hollywood where it's just like, where someone gets so immersed into a character, i.e. like someone like you'd say like Heath Ledger from like The Dark Knight Rises as Joker. So we would do those kind of lessons too. Those lessons were intense because a lot of it is based off like real lived experience, even if you are playing, because you got techniques like emotional memory recall, where you're trying to connect from like something that's happened in your past to a certain moment, like in the script or whatever.
Tapping into that real feeling.
So there's all those kind of techniques they use. You got voice training. you know, movement. You modes and genres and things like that.
Sounds mad.
So
I'm not gonna lie.
it's like
sounds like proper in depth. Like, and I would expect it to be as RADA, but like just hearing it is just like it must have felt intense, especially at 18.
Nah, it was, especially because the foundation obviously also is like, you know, 3 years training condensed in 1 year. So it is very intense. You do a lot of Shakespeare. And, you know, obviously we study Shakespeare at like GCSE and stuff like that, but it's a different beast when you're doing it at drama school and you're actually lifting it off the page.
Imagine.
Completely different beast, because it's like, you know, you've got to know you got to know what everything means. You got to know exactly what you're saying, clear as crystal. We did a lot of work on Shakespeare, and I think for me, especially coming in, like when we were doing lessons like voice, and even like a word like ask. Obviously, coming where we come from, you don't even think about it, but you just go ask. Yeah. Like I asked him to do blah. Yeah. I asked him to do blah.
Pronunciation has to
I remember, but I never forget when my teacher was like, no, ask. I was like, ask. But like, ask. No, ask. I was like I proper, like, it didn't register. Like, it's so mad how it doesn't register. You're like,
this
what?
actually is a good segue, because I was going to ask you, like, being from the background we're from, I imagine, like, when it comes to, like, the acting industry, and even at RADA specifically, like, you're mixing with people that aren't from our background. Like, how do you have to be quite personable to be an actor, firstly? And secondly, like, did you come across a lot of, like, quite pompous, you know, like, felt like they were better than you, or like you were lucky to be here but they weren't, kind of characters? Or is it like everyone's just happy to be there, they don't see, you know, colour or whatever, or where you're from? It's just like we're all actors, we're all professionals?
I think I was quite lucky because it's my year. Like not everyone got on. That's not true, but like a lot of, like, as a year group, we did get on. And like our course director said this to us. He said the year before were absolutely terrible. He was like, they were all just fucking, you know, having sex and fucking each other over, and people weren't. Do you know what I mean? He was like, they were fucking terrible. It was like, your year group is actually like really good group to have.
But what about generally in the industry, like outside of RADA, when you go into auditions or you've been cast for something, and obviously, like, people forget, like, these are all strangers essentially that you're having to play these roles with. You have to get on with them.
Do you know what? I'd say from my experience, I would say, like, the kind of pompous trope and, like, the people who, you know, whatever, I feel like that is a minority, because I feel like actors are very similar in terms of a lot of them are do you know what I mean? That are like, I would say I'm a people person. I think a lot of actors are, you know, people persons, you know. So I don't think it's necessarily hard to mix and to integrate with people from that background. I feel like people, and I think even the people that go in there with a certain image of who they think they are, after like a couple of weeks, I think that all just goes to shit, because you're working so intimately with people for a period of time, whether it is drama school or on a like theatre show or whatever. Like if you're in a show for like half a year, you're seeing these people every single day, and it's a different kind of bond from just like necessarily your average sort of days, or your sort of like, like an average day's work, because you're working on it on a different kind of level, in terms of like emotionally and everything else. So
is that the same with the directors and the people on set that aren't necessarily actors as well, or like the casting? Are they not kind of, you're not getting treated differently because, you know, you're black or you're young, or they're not like just assuming, oh, this guy's inexperienced, or they're not?
Nah, because I feel like people will probably only have that perception of you if they haven't really spoken to you or not really met you.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like when you get onto a set, you've been approved for a reason. And this is the thing. A lot of the time, if you can do the job, that's great. But I think a lot of the time, I mean, I feel it too. Like a lot of the time, I feel like I've got castings just from who I am as a person. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like
very personable anyway.
Yeah, and I think not even just me. I think a lot of actors get jobs like that. Like if you come into a room and like your energy's there, and do you know what I mean? And the director sees that, casting director sees that, producer sees that, and they're all like, this guy can get on with anyone. Like, he's not going to be a problem. Like, this person's not going to be a problem, like, on set. They're just going to get on with their work. It's going to be so easy to work with them. Because that's really what they look for. They look for, like, are you good at your job? Can you do the job for one? That's one. Are you easy to work with? And they're, those are really the main things they look for. Like, are you the role? Can we work with you? And that's kind of it. I don't really feel like, I haven't really felt, there's been moments where you're like, someone might have said something and you're looking at them like,
yeah, that's like,
do you know what I mean? And you're like, what was that? Like, there's been moments, but again, I've been lucky because I know there are loads of people who have probably had that experience. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I've been lucky because, a lot of people would have probably had things like that, and I know people, not even just actors, but like, stage managers, etc., like, who've kind of had that experience. So yeah.
Is all this information, because you're dropping a lot of gems, I feel like, especially if there's people that are watching that are, budding actors. Is this information that you've kind of like had to learn yourself through experience, or have you had like advice from bigger actors? Because going to RADA, being in the mix, have you got to meet certain people that have, quite big names or whatever, that have maybe been able to just give you some advice that you've taken on and now gone forward with? Or is this a lot of like just based on experience, or is it a bit of both?
I mean, there's always, the industry for one is very small, as are almost all the creative industries, like music. Do you know what I mean? And everything else, like, creative industries are really small. So there are definitely people who I've spoken to who've like dropped advice here and there. But in all honesty, this is a lot of it is learned as you go on. And I think like that's kind of like the only way you can, not the only way, but I think unless you've got like parents or, uncles and aunties like who are in the industry, nepotism, let's say, right? Like, you can only kind of really experience it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because I feel like even if people tell you something, you may not necessarily hear it. Do you know what I mean? If people
feel it, you have to go through it.
In a way, yeah.
Really
understand it. And that's the thing. Like, people can tell you, like, this is going to be hard. This isn't easy. Blah, blah, blah. And then you can think, I went to RADA. It's not going to be that. Do you know what I mean? I still went to one of the best drama schools in the world. It's not going to be that hard. Like, it's going to be hard, but I'll still be all right. Like, look, I've booked all my jobs, like, from straight out the gate, like, sort of thing. But then there's a difference between experiencing it. And then when you experience it, that's where you learn. And that's also actually a big thing in casting also, like, life experience. Yeah. Because, even my course director used to say it, like, it's such a big thing. It's a thing that a lot of people get cast on. Like, it's life experience, and a lot of people don't get roles not because they're not good enough, because they ain't got life experience. Because that's the thing. It's like, if you've had a baby, for example, and you're playing a role of like a dad in like a short film or a film, it's like
you've got real experience you can draw off.
You've got real experience you can draw off. So, but if you're not, it's going to be a lot harder for you to portray that realistically, especially to audience members who have kids. They're going to look at this person like, bro, why are they holding the baby by the waist and not supporting its neck? Like, what are you doing? That's not how you hold a baby. Yeah, literally. Like, so yeah, I think that's also a big thing.
That makes sense. I feel like there was a period where, I might be wrong, but you felt like maybe you were getting typecast a bit. Is that, I feel like I know it is commonplace in the industry, but how did you deal with that, and how do you get out of that? Like, if you're always going to auditions and they're like, well, yeah, you're good, but we think you'd be better for this role, and it's like always the same role.
I mean, this is just typecasting is just a big, it's a big thing anyway. Like, the thing is, there's a difference. Like, there's a difference between typecasting and casting. And there is kind of like a grey area also, because it's like, you can be typecast as like, oh, you're just, whatever this is, you're just this hood guy, blah, blah, blah. So we want you to play this hood guy. I mean, for example, we're going a little bit of a tangent, but I think like Cuban Gooding Jr., when he did Boys in the Hood, I think he said like, after that role, he couldn't get those are the only roles that were offered to him. The only roles he'd be seen for was those kind of roles. And he was like, but I've done this. I want to do something a little bit different now. But that was it for, 10 years. That was the only kind of roles he was getting seen for.
It's almost like being blackballed. Like,
almost.
You can only do this role.
Yeah.
This is the role we want you for.
Yeah, almost. And I think with that, I mean, I don't feel like I've been typecast really too much. I feel like I've just been put in this casting bracket of this is who we think you are, because with casting it's all about like who are you as a person, what's your essence, and what's your essence as a character. And I feel like you need to, as an actor, you need to figure out your essence, which isn't easy, because you may see yourself, I'm this person, I'm an introverted, person in my room, and I just like to write books or whatever it is. But then when you go into casting, they see you as like a really comedic, unintentionally comedic, funny person. Yeah. So it's a weird kind of thing that you've got to kind of be intuitive enough to kind of figure out for yourself.
But then also like trust the judgment of those that are maybe a bit more experienced and be like, you are unintentionally funny. Why don't you give this comedic role a go?
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's because it may just be a way to get your foot in the door. Do you know what I mean? And actually, speaking of that, that's what I'm trying to get into a bit more comedy, actually, to be honest, because I feel like a lot of people have been telling me recently that's actually a route I should go down. So I've been trying to do a bit more of that. But I think that is definitely a thing that you got to keep in mind. Like, and a lot of that isn't personal. It's just what you're seen as. And if you don't want to be seen as that, try and do things that are try and do things that you want to be perceived as, but there's no harm in doing that, because that just may be your work. Because how many times have you seen it, like comedic actors who get into like roles or who do certain roles constantly, and then they change and they go through this transformation. It's like, oh my God, we've never seen them like that. Yeah. Like, have you seen Uncut Gems?
Yeah,
Adam Sandler. Yeah. And it's like, and to be honest, I don't actually think that's so far from his casting, really and truly.
No, I didn't really. Well, I guess it is, but
it kind of is, because I guess he's just been doing, like fucking grown-ups and shit for like the last 15 years, and like Little Nicky.
But if you know Adam Sandler, like this guy can really act. Like.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it's like he's always had that in his he always had it in his locker for a long time anyway. But like for whatever reason, he's like, I want to do something like this that's a bit different, So
I guess it's easier to do that when you hold a bit of weight in the
industry. 100%.
So like, just moving on to the last few kind of questions, I wanted to just touch on like how you manage to balance everything, like being an adult now, like you've got, whatever like job or like work that you have outside of acting, if you kind of need some income, social life, obviously acting itself, family, like how do you balance everything when the career you're in, like you said, 90-something% of people aren't employed? Like as an actual like adult now, like how does that affect your mental health, and how do you go like day by day, is it always like a constant search, the hunger keeps you going? Does it get you down some days where you're just like, it's been 6 months and I haven't got a role, like am I losing it? Should I move to something else? Like I'm sure there's people out there who might think these things.
100%. Listen, you have those thoughts all the time. Those thoughts, like the thing is, you have those thoughts every now and again. You always have those thoughts. You're just like, am I good enough? Is this worth it? Am I doing the right thing? But I think the key word that you even just said, but not in that context, but it is balance, because it's like, for me, it's got easier as you get older, because as you said, it's through the experience. And also you get, you do tend to get work on average, well, for me anyway, more as you get older. You do that. Yeah, I'm about to say I do, but I think it's kind of like the balance of not worrying and not trying too hard, but also bringing that effort like every day. Because I do, I got an agent, whatever, but I still look for jobs all the time myself. I still look for jobs, like acting jobs, all the time. And it always seems to be the weeks like you were saying this week as well, like you got a lot of stuff going on, but it always seems to be the weeks that like you've always got something else going on where you're just fucking busy. Like you're just so busy, like you're just like, oh, I've got this to do, like, oh, I might be going to like, doing like day job somewhere or whatever, or doing this one-off job, and then all of a sudden auditions start pouring in and you're like, oh shit, like now I've got no time. But because, do you know what I mean, you wanted this moment, you wanted this work, so you will find time. You'll do the self-tape at 2 o'clock in the morning if you have to. But I just think it's like, I think it gets easier when you understand the game a bit more. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the main thing. And I think it's important to have other things you enjoy apart from acting. I think if you only do acting and that's the thing you're hell-bent on doing, I feel like you will lose your mind a bit. Like if you're like, I can only do this and it's the only thing I enjoy doing, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have an interest outside of that, I think you will kind of destroy yourself. I feel like you have to do other things, you know, whether it's, I mean, exercise, sport, all that kind of stuff is good for your mental health anyway.
Keep you in a positive mind frame and things you enjoy.
Definitely. Yeah. Like you have to do things you enjoy outside of it because it is such a hard business. Like, you know, if you get, you know, I know people that all, you know, have got to, you know, the last rounds of all these big, you know, all these shows like Game of Thrones, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like they always get to the last round and they never get the job, you know, and this is a common theme, even when you get there and you're an A-list name, like, or seem to be an A-list name, there's a common thing that happens all the time. Like you know, this director went and they want to recast it, even though you already got the job. And it's like, it doesn't go there, but they want to recast it or whatever, blah. Like, you know, it happens all the time.
It's just the nature of your job involves a lot of rejection. And
yeah.
It has to be seen as normal because you're not going to get every role.
No.
But that is something in itself that like a lot of people don't necessarily have to deal with in their line of work. You just go and do your job. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe now and then you might go for a promotion and not get it. But that's the only kind of rejection people are dealing with in their day-to-day lives in terms of work. So, you know, I would imagine you have to be thick-skinned to be in your profession. But I was going to say, like, you know, the whole point of me doing this podcast and getting people like yourself on is because it's more to like, it's to let you know, like, you are a success story, in my opinion. Because for me, it's not about how far you necessarily make it up the ladder or, you know, like what kind of like experience you've had, big shows that you can reel off and say, yeah, I've done this, I've done that, even though you have done big shows. But it's the dedication, do you know what I mean? It's the fact that you could have easily at any point said, you know what, I'm just going to get a full-time job, I'm going to make sure I'm nice, I've got money in the bank, I can go on holiday here, I can enjoy life. But you've purposefully stuck to the path that you want to be on. You know what I mean, it's not easy to do. And not a lot of people can do it. And it's something I feel like should be celebrated. And obviously the gems that you've dropped for people watching that maybe aren't even acting, just in terms of to understand what resilience looks like. That's what Too Rare to Die is about, bro. So
that's it.
Yeah, man.
That's it.
But no, seriously, bro, like I appreciate you coming.
Nah, man. I appreciate being here.
If you felt like if there's a greatest achievement you feel like you've done, and also just any advice for people that may be watching this that maybe want to be an actor or just are struggling with the path that they're on, whatever industry
it is. And that's the thing, because I feel like, you know, even, acting is a profession, but I feel like just life, because that's life. Life is full of rejections regardless. So I feel like it could potentially, you know, help anyone, which is why so many people who may start doing completely different careers end up doing acting, you know. But I just want to I'll just go on from what you were saying about how you view success. How you say that you think like it's a success story, but it's quite funny actually. I remember I was watching this documentary, David Harewood, who also went to RADA. Big up David Harewood because he's a real G. But he also went to RADA and he's got a show called The F Word about failure on Sky. And he was doing an interview with Ed Zwick, who's a directed Blood Diamond. And something that he said, that one of his friends said, was about success. And he says what success for him is is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And I think that's a great way to sum it up, because it literally is, because that's all it is. Like, you know, in life, not even just acting, that you're gonna have roadblocks, you're gonna feel like you're failing, and it's just about, you know, and to just about persevering. And that's not necessarily to mean to say that you have to be bright and positive even when your whole world's burning down. But it's to know that, do you know what, tomorrow's another day. And sometimes it is just a mindset thing, and like sometimes it is a kind of a choice, and it's like, tomorrow I'm gonna choose not to be in, you know what I mean, in a bad mood.
It's about your own attitude, because I know people say, like, you know, like when you take an L, it's a lesson and this kind of thing. But for me, it's like in real life, like some L's just feel like, you know, they're not lessons. They're
just a slap. Like, literally.
It could be unfair, could be unjust, but it's about your attitude, your mentality, and how you recover from that. Even if you don't learn or understand why you hit that roadblock, you don't have to. But can you get to the next checkpoint? But
the thing is, I think you will. And if it's not tomorrow, if it's not in 5 months, it will be in 5 years. Do you know what I mean? Because there's always a reason. There's something will always come back to you. Be like, oh shit, I remember that time. I remember I was doing blah. Oh, and it would just, something would drop in, you know. Yeah.
No, man. Thank you for coming on,
bruh.
It's been a good
pleasure,
chat.
man.
I've learned some things I didn't even know. I've known you for a while, but I feel like I understand the acting industry now, like fully. Like, not fully, obviously. I have to be involved to understand it.
But definitely more insight.
Yeah, man.
Sort of thing.
It's tough, man. So, yeah, man. I commend you.
Yes, boy.
Love.
Bless, man.
Appreciate you.
Yes, bro. Appreciate you too, man. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for coming.
Yeah, bro. Too rare.